Hello and welcome to Edenwick. I haven't titled this video at the time of this recording, but if future me has done his job correctly, then this should be a pretty straightforward video. 'Tis I, redrawing my old art for a multitude of reasons, to see my growth, to make content, nostalgia, and to create quick illustrations to populate a modern collection of my work. Now, redrawing my old art is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I just never quite found a moment where I felt ready to do it for some reason. I always felt like when I tried to redraw the thing, I would continue to make the same choices, and I would be shocked to find that my growth wasn't as good as I thought it was, or that, at least in that instance, that was the best I could do with the idea that I created. But now, after doing this one, and even thinking about some of the future ones I'm going to do, I find that my thought process and my idea generation is different. I'm not limiting myself as much as I did back then with what I thought I was capable of doing, and instead I'm looking for ways to do things beyond what I believe my ability is. And I think that's what's important about growth. It's about testing your limits and going beyond. Now, this is another unscripted video. I don't know when I'm going to post this video. So I don't know how many unscripted videos I've done by the time this one airs. But what I do know is that while convenient for time's sake and a lot easier than writing a script for a video in some ways, it is also very difficult to try to think of things to say on the spot, especially when I have to go back and edit everything out because I said way too many times and or I rambled for 10 to 20 minutes. But without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so here's the drawing that I did way back when. This was back when I was in university still, and I was taking a design fundamentals class. It's not a crazy drawing. It's not anything. At the time, I don't remember what I felt at the time. I'm pretty sure I liked it. I didn't color it originally, but I do believe it was a digital piece. When I zoom into this one, as is now, I see a lot of lines and indications that the inking was done digitally and not done traditionally. But I remember at the time, the reason I started doing pieces like this is because in my design fundamentals class, I think I was required to do traditional inking. Or I made the decision to do traditional inking. It was another traditional inking phase for me, but I was using micron pens. It was also a skull phase. I don't remember what exactly started the whole skull phase, but there is a semi-purpose to it. At the time of this class, when I got into traditional inking, I think I was also thinking and drinking and hoodwinking. But I think I was also thinking about making a comic. The name of the comic was going to be called Misfit Rev, like a Misfit Revolution. It took place in a world where humans had automated themselves to extinction, using artificial intelligence to take over all of every part of their life. Everything they did, a robot or an AI would be doing, even reproducing. They had a factory that would create offspring based on genetic code and data. And eventually, no normal humans were left, and the AIs forgot what a normal human was like. So, instead of producing humans at this point in time, it was producing hybrids of like animals or cyborgs, and in this case a skull-headed race of people. The The skull-headed race of people were considered to be the scum of society based on their appearance and certain things that I guess stereotypes they did. And the story was about attacking those stereotypes in society, as well as the sacrifices that people make to break from those stereotypes. And yeah, it was pretty, it was gonna be a pretty deep and like, not gonna say controversial, but I wanted to deliver a lot of messages when I was creating this story, and I could never really get the story part out though. I only had ideas, and I wanted to create characters at the time, which was a lot of skull-headed people, bunny people, robots, and just random combination of things, because that's what the misfit part was about. It was just supposed to be a weird world, but still filled with some of the darknesses and the bad things that humanity left behind. And ironically, AI was not one of those things. The AI, it controlled the factory and junk, and I think at some point the artificial intelligence was gonna come into question, but it wasn't a big part of like humanity destroying themselves. Which now, if I were to do the story, yeah, AI, taking over would be done differently. Well, it'd be done the same way, yeah, completely automating humanity out of the equation, and eventually the AI not knowing what it's supposed to do. And of course, with the creation of these skull-headed people came the urge to draw a bunch of skulls. I feel like there's artists have their skull phases amongst other things, and I've had several in my life, and this was another one. It didn't last extremely long, and shortly after is when quarantine happened. I actually don't remember a lot about the first stretch of quarantine and what I was drawing at that time. I'm gonna have to go look for some of that art and see what was going on. But back to the drawing. So in this one, I think I was trying to go for just a series of skull-like things where I could put it on a t-shirt or something, make merch out of it, which is also what I'm kind of doing right now. And this one was just going to be like a music skull for those who like music. The idea was that it was also, of course, not like a normal human skull. It was cybernetic in some ways. But in the original, I can tell I rushed a lot in the original. Despite either I rushed a lot or I didn't know what I was doing. But no, it seems like I was rushing and I was trying my best to get it done fast with the inks, and it's sloppy in so many places. The background elements with the blue, I guess those are like the waves, the audio waves or something. What is that called? I added that in last minute, something extra to add to the whole music thing, and it doesn't really work. Most of it doesn't really. I can tell that I've improved a lot from then. And so when I was redrawing it, first of all, skull references. I remember at the time thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm so good at drawing skulls now. I'm so good at drawing skulls." But it was also a time where I wasn't using reference in my drawings for the most part. And so most of the stuff doesn't look as good as it could do. The teeth don't even... Well, the teeth were meant to be like all jagged and weird, but still, like only 3 teeth on either side of the face doesn't really make any sense. And the cybernetic parts, they looked extremely rushed and not really cybernetic. You can kind of tell that I was just doing it to like quickly make some merch stuff, even though I know it wasn't something that I did in like a day. Well, it might have been done in one session, but I don't remember being done with it I might have done the drawing first and then the color on another day, even though the color is also rushed. I'm not gonna zoom in. I don't even know if I'm putting the picture up on this right now. I'm probably drawing right now. Anyway, but when I was redoing it, originally I was like, let's just make it basic, just redraw the exact same thing, but make it look better. And so I thumbnailed it. I took out some of the elements I didn't like, which was like the music stuff in the background, the random lines going up and down, as well as the weird teeth. I actually referenced what headphones look like, which I didn't at the time. I don't know if I had headphones at the time, but I just put a shape down, and I'm pretty sure that like the headphones in the original are not where the ear would be, or are like not completely aligned on the ear. The eye part is like way back. I digress. And I wanted it to be more obvious that it was cybernetic in the second one. So I added some there's chords in the first one, but barely. I added some aux chords into the second one, along with some attachment chords. Paid more attention to how I would do the spine, and added some elements onto the actual skull itself that would be out of place on a normal human skull. I continued to use the if you look at the original drawing, there's I keep saying man, I'm gonna have to edit out all of that. In the original drawing, I'm an idiot. If you look at the original drawing, there's a pattern on the top of the headphones. At the time, patterns were something that I was doing a lot in the design fundamentals course. And that specific pattern was one that I used a lot. I remember it being an important part of the drawing, even though I didn't use a lot of it. So I decided that I wanted to keep it in this version to stay true to the nature of the original drawing. Of course, I removed the giant eyebrow from the original drawing because skulls don't have giant eyebrows like that, unless it's like a caveman or something. Or I guess if it's like really stylized. But in a lot of the skull drawings I was doing at the time, I put eyebrows in a lot of them to show expressions and junk, when it's unnecessary. It's done in a lot of there's a lot of graphic skulls that use the eyebrow thing to show emotion, but I feel like you can display a vibe with a skull without using any facial expressions, simply by what you put around the skull, A skull in itself has like an infinite amount of expressions based on how well kept it is, the textures on it, and what's it around it, If you put a skull in like a field of flowers, it can be something beautiful and sad. Or if you put a skull in like a pile of bones in a dark cave, it can be dark and a bit scary, even if you don't change the expression on either of them. A skull that's, with flesh on it and decaying is more akin to like horror and creepy stuff, whereas a skull that's just, in a lab or floating in some liquid is more scientific and sci-fi. But then again, anything in a lab can be more scientific and sci-fi. I gotta say that the primary difference between me doing the drawing now and when I did it earlier is patience and mindset. Younger me was probably a lazy artist, without knowing it. Reference wasn't something I used a lot, and I did try my best to finish things fast, and I settled for what I thought was good enough. Now I have to look at reference, I have to search for reference, and even in searching for references, when I don't find anything, I'm able to consume a lot of what I do see, and brainstorm ways that I might go about creating a pose or drawing something that I previously didn't know how to approach. And I take the time with each line and each shape, and I sketch and sketch over. I erase and I sketch over again. And the crazy thing is, it's not slower. This patient version. It feels slow at times, but results come faster when I take the time to think. When I'm not busy cleaning up mistakes. And when I approach things carefully and don't settle. And sometimes I might have to erase entire things, but replacing it with something better is always better. Or trying out a new idea is better than settling for the first one. Alright, so this was only my second time using the traditional inking tools, and I was indeed nervous. But the nerves disappeared like 3 minutes into me practicing lines on a different piece of paper. I got bored and was watching time pass as I inked something that would really not bring me any use. So I jumped into the inking and went to work. Now, ultimately, I believe I learned 2 things, maybe 3 things, or maybe 1. Well, it all comes down to being less stiff and being free. It's about understanding and trusting the process of inking. When going in, my nerves and concerns made the process stressful and ultimately stiff. But in order to get good inks, I'm going to have to allow myself the freedom to take risk and to add to the sketch rather than just tracing. I'm not there yet, but hopefully I'll get there. Another thing I learned was that there are no rules. I don't only have to use a nib when inking, and there is no order to what I ink. There were moments where I was staring at the page thinking of what to ink next like I was playing chess. But the reality is it doesn't really matter. As long as I'm paying attention to what ink is still wet, I can ink any line I see whenever I feel. I also did not only use a nib. Sometimes I would grab a micron to help ink things that might have been harder to do with a nib. Similar to digital art where people might use multiple brushes for different tasks, I can do the same with ink, finding what tools work for me and adding them to my arsenal. Something I might be doing soon on this channel, but knowing me, soon might mean in a month or 2. Now this is not the last step for this image. I will begin coloring it next. Don't know if I'll stay true to the original, but only time will tell. Redrawing this was fun, and it wasn't the only thing I redrew from my past. There is another skull drawing I wanted to give some love to, and maybe another after that. Who knows? Maybe it's another skull phase. A way to help stop AI from taking over the world again. Anyway, I hope this video was enjoyed by at least one of you out there. If not, let us know in the comments what could be done better. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can see what I do next. Until we meet again, I would just like to say, welcome to Edenway.